Okay. Well, we're going to do a nice addendum to the White House stories of spirits seen in the White House and all the stories in the lore. I did that short video, but I have so much more to tell you about. So let's just do some housekeeping here and make sure this is all straightened up here. I don't want that light glaring behind. I may need to sit over here a little bit. Okay, just trying to be comfortable and casual for this live. Hi, hello. Okay, so let me just get a sip of this drink really quick because it's like 70, is it 79? I think it's 78 or 79 degrees in Phoenix right now. The weather is really nice and my voice is kind of going. So um yeah, let's kind of have a conversation about these spirits seen in the White House. I think it's so interesting. Hi Regina, hi Rogue. Okay, so let's get into the stories I haven't shared yet. So I have them listed out here. This is kind of funny. So during a World War II visit, Churchill emerged naked from the bath with a cigar in his hand, and he encountered the ghost of Lincoln leaning by the fireplace that was in his room. And he said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have caught me at a disadvantage." That's a great story. And then they said Lincoln's ghost disappeared shortly after that. Again, why would these world leaders lie about this? Like, they've got nothing to lose, right? Yeah. Um, I don't know. This one's not so fascinating. Eleanor Roosevelt said she always felt his Lincoln's present, by the way, presence when she was working in the Lincoln bedroom. Okay. Well, you can we'll just leave that at that. That's not necessarily fascinating. However, Ronald Reagan's daughter, so in the 80s, when that family was in the White House, she woke up to see a transparent figure, a spirit. And she believed it was the ghost of Lincoln, that it looked, tall with a hat, the beard, the whole thing. And she reported that he was standing at the bedroom window, standing in the Lincoln bedroom, and gazing out the window before the mist he just slowly disappeared. I kind of like that one. That seems more likely. Hi, Sue. Oh, so during Franklin D. Roosevelt's tenure at the White House, his personal driver or valet was seen running screaming from the White House, claiming he saw Lincoln's ghost. And other people reported hearing the footsteps outside the hall in the Lincoln bedroom during Roosevelt's presidency. That's a that's a pretty good one. Oh, this is interesting. So Ronald Reagan's dog, remember his dog named Rex? Do y'all remember that? Reagan said his dog Rex would bark outside Lincoln's bedroom door. He would sit there. The dog would refuse to enter the room. And Reagan thought the dog was sensing Lincoln's spirit. And even Reagan himself speculated that he felt Lincoln's presence. So let's see. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Christy. Mary Lincoln did say, yeah, that's yes, she did. Mary Lincoln did seances in the Red Room. You just wonder, what room is that today? I don't know. Definitely, pets may have a gift of seeing spirits. There was that TV series. What was it called? It was short lasting, and it was just all about pets that it's kind of a scary series. Anyway, pets that detect ghosts and spirits in the home. Um, So in the 1980s, one of the White House aides saw Lincoln sitting at a chair at the top of the staircase, and so they said this is one of the most modern of the last recorded sightings of Lincoln. So back in the 80s, another 20th century report: a seamstress heard pacing on an upper floor and was told it's old Abe, just old Lincoln pacing the floor. We don't know if that was him, but there you go. Okay, so yeah, and then I was talking about Lincoln's son Willie that died. Someone commented on my other video that he died of cholera from bad water from the Potomac River, which is awful. But here, what I'm finding is Willie Lincoln actually died of typhoid fever in 1862 at age 11. And typhoid is spread when you have urban areas and people are not, like Typhoid Mary, people are not washing their hands before they're preparing food and serving food. And apparently, Typhoid Mary, I could be wrong. I might need to fact check this for a second. I thought she worked in a restaurant and had and spread it to all these people. Um, so yeah, so apparently maybe cholera is not typhoid fever, so well, am I wrong? Hold on. Let me fact check how he died. Now I gotta look into this because I don't wanna be wrong. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, no, Willie died of they say it's typhoid fever and not cholera. Those are definitely, different diseases. Um, they are both spread through, contaminated food and water, but yeah, now these we don't so much worry about typhoid because people we do have really good sanitation and cleanliness standards of keeping clothes and hands clean after preparing raw meats, raw chicken, you know um, butchering an animal, that there's stool. I mean, this is what used to happen in those days, right? Like all that was kind of done in the same area, and so that's how typhoid was spread. Anyway, so unfortunately, Willie Lincoln is another recurring spirit in the White House. And this is who saw it. So I talked about Ulysses S. Grant's staff in the 1870s would see Willie running around the White House. Um, and President Lyndon Johnson's own daughter claimed to have seen Lincoln's son Willie in the room where he even died. And she said she was possibly even speaking with him. That's just the report from that, and that's just from the 1960s. Let's see the comments here. Yeah, okay, you guys are just discussing that. And okay, so now moving to the 1950s, more on Eisenhower. Eisenhower's staff not only heard Andrew Jackson's deep guttural laugh coming from, so I would talk about how he was heard screaming and swearing by one first lady, but his staff would hear Andrew Jackson laughing from his room where his old bed was located, which is now called the Queen's bedroom. Yeah. So we briefly touched on Dolly Madison. Let's go more into that story. So, two gardeners that were tasked with relocating her rose garden. It was her thing. It was her beloved rose garden. They moved it. They reported that they actually encountered her angry spirit because they were moving her rose garden. And after that spirit sighting, they did not touch the garden. They just maintained it, and they no longer saw her spirit anymore. Apparently, Dolly Madison saved the portrait of George Washington during the War of 1812. Fun fact. Yeah. Yeah, this story was kind of sad where, the ghost was banging on the White House doors, and people saw her spirit, crying, and they heard her, like, in really muffled tones, like, pleading, for her mother's life because her mother, yeah, was one of the co-conspirators in Lincoln's assassination, so that's kind of wild. Like, I could see them making a movie on that because that would be actually, a movie of all this would be really kind of wild, wouldn't it? Um, yeah, that would just be this is what I wanted to know. When they kept seeing the ninth president, William Henry Harrison, in the attic, which I find is very unusual, apparently after 1927, the attic was renovated into an actual living space. So that's good because I was just imagining it as some creepy attic. And for some reason, people reported seeing his ghost up there. So and I was talking about the person that owned the land that the White House was built on, named David Burns. People said he heard his disembodied voice saying, "I'm Mr. Burns." And this was heard in the yellow Oval Room and the Oval Office. Um, isn't that interesting? So those reports came out during Truman's administration. And then the lesser known spirits, there was a white-haired old man, who people said he used to be the White House attaché in the late 1800s and was seen with his beard and hair looked phosphorescent, and he was seen in the second floor bedrooms and, was reported by President Ulysses Grant. Chester Arthur said he saw the spirit as well and also sensed an electric sensation. He had experienced electric sensation. I've talked about that before. It's so interesting because I've not seen anything like that, but I've had the weird, prickly, electrical feeling, electrical sensations before. I'm hoping it's only something good. Every now and then someone will comment on my channel, it's a demon. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so because there was nothing else nefarious about it." I can never know for sure, right? I don't know for sure. But that is wild when other people back then, when nobody was talking about the stuff we see on the internet now, that people were still experiencing those electric sensations on their body. Yeah. I know. As far as, our people recently, I mean, that probably won't come out for a while yet, I don't think, because I don't know, they'd probably be like, "Why are you talking about that? We have other things to deal with." I don't know. Um, yeah. Oh, this is interesting. So Jenna and Barbara Bush, George Bush's, daughters, of course, claimed they heard opera singing and 1920s music coming out of a fireplace in the White House, and this was confirmed by a butler that also, experienced the phenomenon at the same time. That's a pretty cool story. And then, lots of staff, unnamed staff has said that they hear everything you would think of in a traditional haunted house. Strange knocking, footsteps, music coming out of empty rooms. I mean, I've never heard of music coming out of a fireplace. That's why that story seems so unique and believable, you know? Um, but then again, you might be able to explain that because I have a fireplace in my house, and when birds are on the roof and they're chirping, it sounds like they're in the room next to me because that sound just can travel down the fireplace. So, but why would they hear like 1920s music and opera singing? I mean, nobody was doing that in the White House unless someone was listening to that on another floor and it came down the fire. Who knows? That's just an interesting story. Okay. Whoop. Just lost my screen there. Okay. Were they twins? Were the Bush daughters twins? I don't know. I do enjoy seeing, who is the one that's usually on the talk show? Jenna Bush. Is it Jenna? Uh, that's on the talk show. Um, yeah, I think so, right? She seems nice. Oh, is it morning in Australia right now? That's cool. Well, hello and welcome, right? Yeah. Oh, and the goosebumps too. You always get them when you're talking about something spiritual. Truth bumps. That's funny when I say something that is higher truth. Yeah, I love that. Or, don't you love that too when you are experiencing like the most beautiful music live in person, or when you're listening to someone live, or someone just has this really like inspiring speech and you get goosebumps. It just means like, oh, it's just talking to your soul. It's like resonating with your spirit. I do love that. Okay, so let's go more into um, the stories from the White House because I think that's so interesting, right? See some of these comments. They say we leave imprints and that can play over and over again like the music. Yeah, I saw something once that how like how a movie is made, that light is imprinted on film. And then here we are, light beings experiencing life, and then our energy can actually get imprinted around us as if it was made, as if our environment, the air, the atoms around us were all a type of film, and that's why people say they sometimes tend to see, like, recurring, like Roman soldiers walking through their yard, if they live in Europe or whatever, like, it's just imprinted there, and they just see it over and over again. That is pretty cool, and maybe some of these sightings they're seeing of Lincoln in the room, maybe it's just an imprint, him going over and over again through the same hallways and whatnot. So getting more specifically into Queen Wilhelmina's encounter in 1942. So she was invited to come to America by President Roosevelt. She was a Dutch queen, and of course, she stayed in the famous Lincoln bedroom. So she was lying there, and she heard a knock at the door. And she opened the door and she saw Lincoln, President Lincoln, standing there in his signature frock, that long black frock coat, his famous top hat, and didn't say any words, but just standing there staring at her. The story says she fainted. And the story went all through the White House and the staff of what just took place. And they went to go check on her. Everything was fine. But that was in the 40s. And let's see. If you've been to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, people claim these. Oh yeah, I know all those shows I've seen on Gettysburg. That's probably another great place to go visit. I'm just yeah, I want to be careful what I go where I go. I don't want to bring anything back with me. No, no spiritual travels. I don't want them to come back with me. Um, yeah, Lincoln has been seen to be seen in the Lincoln Room. Yes, many, many times. Yeah, I don't know if I would have passed out, but I would have just been like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Like, I think I would have been speechless for sure. Um, being twins, they could have been predisposed to feeling and seeing spiritual things. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I wonder if she kept sleeping in there. I doubt it, right? Hopefully they moved her. Yeah, I talked about this one, the laundry ghost. So this story was from the White House in the 1910s, and they called it the East Room Laundry Ghost. So this was during President Taft's administration. His entire staff and family claimed they saw the ghost of Abigail in the East Room, and that they saw her with her arms outstretched as if she was carrying her laundry. And then as she would go by, they would smell wet clothes and the soaps and the lavender scented soap that they used to use. And she was on staff there in the 1800s. She used to do and hang up the laundry there. Um, and when let's see, it says, when the mansion was still damp and unfinished, this gentle domestic haunting became a beloved tale. Hmm. So there's that one. Yeah, the Dolly Madison story. So that is pretty cool. That happened during Woodrow Wilson's administration. And I just was saying how these two gardeners workers were told to, kind of upkeep the garden, possibly move it. So they were uprooting things, they're moving the garden, and they both claim that they saw her angry ghost because she very much guarded her rose garden, didn't want people to mess with it. And, I'm sure when they do White House tours, I don't remember hearing that when I was on the White House tour, but, I'm sure they probably highlight that story when they show the rose garden. Um, and a lot of history buffs love that story. Oh, yeah. So yeah, more on the sighting of, Abraham Lincoln's son. They said a maid from Ulysses S. Grant's administration said she saw young Willie's ghost, and he just looked like a mournful figure. and that he was tied to the room, not tied up, but like tied to the room where he died, where his figure wasn't able to come out of that room. And I mean, just to add on to the Lincoln's family grief, what that mom went through, losing her son, and then of course losing her husband, as we all know how that went down. Um, we think everything, or at least I think, like the world is just so wild these past few years, and everything we see going on with our presidents, the government, world leaders, war, all that. Imagine being in that time, living in that time, Lincoln's own son dying in the White House, Lincoln being assassinated. It would probably feel like the world, freeing the slaves, like you've got all this hope of freedom, the Civil War, like the country fighting with its own cousins, and then I think probably they thought that was just apocalyptic end of the world stuff. So I guess if we kind of put these things in perspective and imagine the energy, it's I guess it's not that shocking that his son and Lincoln would still be seeing there, like the amount of grief and energy and everything that went on then, right? Yeah. Beverly, let's see what you put here. Before I moved to Florida, I used to live in Pennsylvania and had a friend who loved Gettysburg. We went there all the time. She would take her camera. Yeah, that would be. I would love to do that. Take camera there. So I don't like this story of the thing. That's literally what they call this ghost. They call it the thing, which I think is a little bit disrespectful, but this story of the thing, what they called it, comes all the way back from 1911 when President Taft was in the administration. Um, and they called it, oh, the thing is in the room. The thing, well, it was a ghost. And they said it was young, like a teenager, like a 14 or 15-year-old looking boy, and would come and lean on people's shoulders or press them on the shoulders as if he was looking over their shoulder to see what they were reading or what they were working on. President Taft kind of had enough of this. He banned any discussion of it, but the story leaked out of the White House and it became just gossip throughout the country and became an unsettling classic and quirky tale. I just hate that they were calling it the thing. I just think, I mean, if that was a conscious spirit and it was a boy and just calling it the thing, I don't know. But yeah, that was a famous story from that time. I read that, Lori, I'm going to read what you put here. I read that all time is happening at the same time. I've read that too, that when we move to the other side, that we'll just be able to see past, present, and future all all happening at once. Like our consciousness will be able to comprehend that. Like obviously living in this 3D world, we cannot comprehend it. We see time as linear. But I believe you are absolutely correct in that it does everything that is all is happening at once, like in the we won't see that until we're in the spiritual world, which I'm kind of looking forward to. If there is a great library, I definitely want to hang out there and experience. Hopefully, it's almost like a hologram where you can experience things that happened in the past and the future. And I'm really looking forward to that, to tell you the truth. So, yeah, I definitely believe that. Teresa, I would love to go to the White House and ghost hunt. As a nurse, I've seen a lot of stuff my last 38 years of working. Right? Yeah. I know, it's funny, I think nurses, doctors, healthcare providers, all that, like, there's a lot of us that are very interested in the spiritual world because we see so many amazing things all the time. However, I know people that won't talk about it at all. It's almost like they're completely like, shut off from it. Yeah, kinda cool. On your tour, you went to the courtroom. It was very creepy, a sudden feeling of dread. Yeah, isn't it wild when you go on those historical tours that some feel like light and airy and others like you can say, "Oh, did they have old Civil War soldiers locked up here? Like who got sentenced to life in prison?" Like you can literally feel it. Oh, the Akashic records. Yes, I'm looking forward because I love a good library. I love books. I love libraries. I don't know. I hope someday when I retire, one of my bucket lists is I would just love to own a little bookstore and just hang out in there, you know? Um, but yeah, I'll be hanging out in the records room and the hall of records, books, and all that. And I'm all about, hey, I'd love to come back to Earth again, but I want to spend quite a few decades, just, catching up, catching up on the books. Um, yeah. Let's see. Oh, did I miss something that's let's see. I was a police officer in a town. Oh, yeah. That Lincoln's funeral train had passed through in 1865, and according to legend, the ghost train could be seen once a year. Oh, that is a cool legend. Wouldn't that be a great movie? All these things that went down in the White House and the legends attached to it. I think that would be great. Yeah. Oh, we would all come to your bookstore. Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about it, been watching some videos on it. It may happen. We'll see. Do you guys have kind of aspirations like that? Like, and maybe a bookstore that has a particular theme? I don't know. Because I definitely am gonna have a huge, like, section on spirits, reincarnation, ghosts, the other side, everything spiritual, absolutely, you know? But I do love modern fiction, just like everything. Oh, I'm reading where did I put that book? Is it here? Is it right there? Oh, yeah. Let me grab this book. This is kind of hold on, I'm gonna grab this book 'cause this is casual, so I'm just gonna lean over here and get my book really quick. Hold on. Hopefully that doesn't come tumbling down. Okay. Oh, yeah. So right now, have you guys seen this book yet? Eruption. Michael Crichton, who has passed away, such a good writer though, but James Patterson picked up his story and finished it. It's really good. It's about obviously a volcano erupting in Hawaii. I hope they make a movie out of this. So far, it's really good. But what I love about what I love about the book, they have all these maps. Like here's this one, and they're showing Mauna Loa, the largest volcano in the world. There it is, and next to Hilo. Uh, anyway, that was the big island I just showed you. And then they have all these other little maps in here. Like here's this one of all the islands there, and kind of goes into like how the volcano, I know we're off topic here, but how the volcanoes were formed, that they're formed under the ocean. And then as it cools, it becomes these islands. And the further out the islands go, like so here's the big island. The further out the islands go, the older they are. So apparently Kauai and Oahu are the oldest of the islands, and that like the big island is one of the newest. And they said, what was the timeline? Like um, the whole let's see, people were on the earth and the Hawaiian Islands had not formed yet we were here. Isn't I kind of think about timeline like that's just wild. That there's literally also another island forming right now. I don't know if we'll ever see it in our lifetime, but like there will be more islands in this Hawaiian island chain before it's all over. I don't know. So I love reading fiction that has some real fact to it that you're actually learning stuff. So anyway, I'm reading that now. And then I'm reading this for the second time. If you guys like something a little, my thing is falling here. There we go. I'm reading this for the second time, Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. It's so good. It's one of those books I'll read for a little bit and then put it down. He's such a beautiful writer. Anyway, it's a bunch of kids that are experiencing literally an entire haunted town. And it's good. It's not like gory or anything. It's just a lot of it's kind of scary, not gonna lie. Scary and suspense, but Dan Simmons is such a good writer. So I'm reading this for the second time because it's such a good book. Those are the two that are on my nightstand right now. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I love books too, and I've been seeing all this stuff online about Kindle changing what you can download because I have a Kindle too, because I love that app Libby, so you can get all the free library books you want. And even new fiction, you just get put on a waiting list, but it'll send you an alert when it's available. Do you guys use that? Do you use the Kindle or the Libby app so you can access your public library? You can get free audio books, you can get movies, and you can get books all on your Kindle or the movies, of course, on your other devices. Cool. Okay. Yeah, well, let's see if there is any lore from Independence Hall in Philly. Let me check really quick. Independence Hall in Philadelphia. Were you there? Let me see your comment. Were you there? Let's see. Ooh, you got negative vibes there. Second floor gallery. Oh, you love Libby. Yeah, Sandra. It's one of my favorite things. Um, well, apparently, yes, there is a lot of paranormal lore that came, Christy, that came from the Independence Hall in Philadelphia. So you were right on track. Benjamin Franklin, one of my favorite historical figures, um, he is often reported being seen. His ghost and spirit is being seen lingering in the assembly room there. Um, Now, of course, we all know that's where the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. So witnesses, visitors, park rangers all claim to see his apparition. I need my drink. Hold on. My non-alcoholic drink. It's my sugar-free Zevia. Um, all these people, visitors, park rangers, and the like, all see his apparition poring over what looks like the document of the Declaration of Independence. Sometimes they say he's even being trailed by a faint mist. Other people say they smell a musty smell that accompanies him. You wonder if it was his clothes. It's not like he sent them to the dry cleaners, right? So that's kind of interesting. I'm hoping that's an imprint. I'm hoping he has moved on and is just not hanging out. Um, and then his presence has also, Benjamin Franklin has also been spotted drifting through the corridors of that area. Park rangers say they see him in his 18th century clothes, breeches, a waistcoat, and even his spectacles. And they see his ghost moving silently before eventually fading away. So I think you were onto something feeling those vibes there. Hmm. And however, the fact that you were feeling negative vibes could be because of this. You remember Benedict Arnold? So he's the infamous traitor, right, to America. Uh, Benedict Arnold's ghost is said to roam the entire building there in Philadelphia, not tied to just one spot like Benjamin Franklin is. Visitors and staff have reported his ghostly figure in his Revolutionary War era uniform, and they describe him as looking just like Benedict Arnold, and he's pacing back and forth restlessly, like he is not receiving peace as a spirit. And unlike Benjamin Franklin's purposeful presence that feels very positive, and it's him working over the Declaration of Independence, Benedict Arnold's apparition or ghost is seen as very sad and somber and regretful. It's almost as if he's trying to ask for forgiveness for betraying our country. They say they often see him pacing and then stand near the windows, gazing out with a very troubled expression on his face. So maybe you were picking up on that. So there's even more spirits in this same Independence Hall in Philadelphia. So we have the clock tower phantoms. On the first floor, people have seen entities in 18th century clothing. Um, One park ranger said the security alarm was tripped. And so when he went out to investigate why the alarm went off, he saw a male figure in colonial attire vanish into the shadows. That would be wild. That would be wild to see. I mean, you're already kind of ramped up because the alarm went off. You think it's just some like thief, and you see some guy in colonial attire. Mm. He said it couldn't have been a person because all the exits were locked. Guards and park rangers have also reported hearing disembodied footsteps echoing through the tower late at night. So, visitors to the building, so this sounds like you maybe, report having sudden chills or a sense of being watched, especially near the assembly room and the signing room. So there you go. The area around the Assembly Hall, or excuse me, Independence Hall, it's haunted as well. Visitors have reported after hours being pushed and poked on their back enough to nudge them forward, but they turn and there's no one there. Huh. Staff and tourists hear faint murmurs, like distant debates going on. Oh, could you imagine if when the politicians were together, like, what they're gonna put in the Declaration of Independence, and maybe there was some debate going back, like, if that imprinted around there and you're hearing echoes of that, that would be pretty cool. So, oh, and one ghost tour guide claimed to catch phantom footprints in the dust, but didn't take any pictures to prove it, so, of course. So there's that. Um, and then to tag on to that, people say Benjamin Franklin's ghost feels like a guardian, where Benedict Arnold's ghost feels like remorse and just being penitent, and kind of negative and depressing. So the building has Georgian brick walls. It was finished in 1753. It has seen everything throughout history: war, the outbreaks of terrible illnesses like fever outbreaks, like we talked about typhoid fever and cholera. The forging of a nation, like everything this nation went through, the positive and the negative, that built it up to what it is today. And they say is the reason why spirits are drawn to this particular area because of all the history and the energy there. And so, wow, pretty cool. I kept feeling someone tap me on the shoulder at Betsy's house. Thought it was my sister, but no one was behind me. Mm, mm. Yeah, let me look. Look at the Betsy Ross ones. Hold on. I couldn't find anything about them hanging him in the hall, but I can look that up really quick. But anyway, yeah, let's talk about. Oh, yeah. Well, of course there is. So the Betsy Ross house, also in Philadelphia. We all know the story of Betsy Ross, right? She sewed our American flag. Um, Her house has been known for years to be haunted. It's located on Arch Street, built in the colonial era. And if there's been countless eerie tales from over the years. 18th century life was full of gruesome realities, but people claim to see Betsy Ross's own spirit itself. So, one of the reports says visitors and staff frequently see a woman in period clothing that looks like Betsy Ross. They hear crying at the foot of the bed located in the basement. I don't know when you went through there, was there a basement? Was there? I mean, I kind of want to be like, is this a true story? Um, they say this is where she did a lot of her work, that she also was sewing musket cartridges for the Continental Army. Her apparition is often linked to her grief over losing her first husband, John Ross, to a gunpowder explosion in 1776, and later her daughter Clarissa during her third marriage to John Claypool. Her sobbing echoes, and the emotional toll of her widowed life with two husbands lost to the Revolutionary War's violence are said to be heard throughout the home. Can you imagine? Yeah. Oh, so there is a basement. Okay. Um, Other people suggest Bessie Ross's ghost roams the house, keeping watch over her own legacy. Guests on tours have felt an unseen presence or heard soft footsteps in the narrow rooms where she lived and worked from 1776 to 1779. Yeah, so you having an experience there makes sense. Did you know any of this? So I guess some more gruesome things occurred there. There was a security guard that was murdered there. So this story points to a violent event. This is from the 20th century, and they called it the story of basement bloodshed at the Betsy Ross house. So apparently, this happened in the 1980s. There is a gift shop next door to the Betsy Ross house. And two security guards apparently got into a really heated argument. This happened at night, and then it got out of hand, and one guard shot the other 3 times leaving him all alone to bleed out there on the scene overnight. Since then, staff at the Betsy Ross house have reported things like rustling noises and creepy whispers that they hear coming up from the basement of both the gift shop and the house itself. And so they do believe the murdered guard's spirit lingers there because he bled out and his blood soaked into the property there. Could it have soaked all the way to the basement? Who knows? I think this would make an amazing documentary or movie. My gosh. I guess apparently in 2009, really recently. Well, to me, 2009 is really recent. I know it's not. What is that? Uh, tw 18, what is that, 17 years ago? Anyway, ghost hunters, did a, investigation there, and apparently they claim they, caught paranormal activity. I'll have to look and see if I can find that show because yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, this is all new stuff. Hey, this is new to me too. I did not know this about the Betsy Ross house. It makes me wanna go to DC this summer because I really wanna go to the White House this I was saying that there's, apparently, this administration wants to be as transparent as ever, and that includes opening more areas of the White House. And that's not usually a thing. When I went, yeah, there were some areas, but there was so many rooms roped off. I was really disappointed. And it's the people's house. It's our house. We should be able to respectfully tour it, right? Yeah. So, um, but now I want to see the Betsy Ross house. Ooh, and now I wanna go see Independence Hall. I might have just figured out my vacation this summer. It might be DC. Um, so even more to wrap that up about the Betsy Ross house, employees that have worked there in the house as guards in the gift shop, all say they're experiencing things like a heavy, oppressive atmosphere, particularly in the basement. Some employees are refusing to go down there alone after dark. And so I think the house's colonial past mixed with this new, um, quite frankly, horrifying murder from the 80s kind of mixing together is making it a really that's a really great focal point for touring and to pick up on energies there. Again, I don't wanna bring anything home. So I'm gonna go in there with a I'm gonna go in there in energy with, like, do a prayer before, light and love, only the greatest good, God protect me, like, I just wanna see history. I don't wanna bring any spirits home with me. Okay. Well, hey, we talked about the basement of Betsy Ross's house because, hold on, you guys, I gotta sit up here because my you're gonna see my messy nightstand over there. Try to block the lamp because that's distracting. Um, so besides the basement causing a lot of oppression and haunting, there's an attic there as well, of course. So let's look into that really quick. So there's a director's office at the Betsy Ross house, and it's located in the attic. And the directors that have worked there, multiple, have said they've experienced startling encounters. One director said she felt a hand grip her shoulder roughly while she was working late. She turned around, and of course, what did she see? Nothing. So they're dubbing it, this is kind of funny, the shoulder grabber. Okay. Uh, however, though, another director was so terrified seeing an or experiencing an unseen force in that attic that she climbed out the window and went onto the flagpole to escape. Well, she must have been young. I can't imagine climbing out a window and grabbing onto a flagpole. Yeah. I guess maybe well, I don't think I would have done that, no. I mean, a ghost can't do anything to you, a spirit can't hurt you, right? So many believe this is the ghost of a previous owner who died in the attic, and they think it may have even been Hannah Lithgow. This person was a wealthy widow who rented space to Betsy Ross, and she also ran boarding houses in the area. They said Hannah was a very stern businesswoman, and she is still seen overseeing the property. Isn't that amazing? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from all this going on, you would think it's a big house. I see what you're putting here, Christy, that the Betsy Ross house is very tiny and narrow. Was there an attic? Do you remember going up, seeing a director's office in the attic? You could smell the dusty floorboards, yeah. So during in the attic area during a Ghost Hunters episode, apparently they caught an EVP recording in the director's office. They said it was a man's voice. They couldn't decipher it. It wasn't clear enough, but they could just hear a man's voice that wasn't there. So apparently they do, Christy, maybe you can let us know if this is true. Apparently they do candlelit tours of Betsy Ross's house. They use candles just so they can highlight the grim conditions of the time, that highlight everything that went on there, disease, war, and death aplenty, of course, because of the Revolutionary War time. Some attribute the negativity and the unease felt there from yellow fever outbreaks. So many of the revolutionary soldiers did get yellow fever. And of course, colonialists themselves. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of deaths there due to that because they didn't have the hospitals like we did now. They were just put up in boarding houses and homes and things like that. So a little historical context because that's always interesting, right? So again, we're talking about the Betsy Ross house. It was built around 1740. I mean, just think of that for a second, right? Her house is still standing. We weren't even an official a country yet in 1740. Isn't it wild? Historians debate, though, whether she lived next door in a building that was demolished. Yet the preservation of the Betsy Ross house serves as a shrine since the 1890s, thanks to the Betsy Ross Memorial Association. And the tight quarters, steep stairs, and basement workroom amplify its spooky vibe, especially during the October candlelit tours. So, Christy, I think you were onto something there with the narrow hallways. It does sound like it. It's very tight quarters. Oh, it was roped off. Okay. Oh, the old hag syndrome. You know what? You got me there on that one. Um, I, but here's the difference. I don't know if there is a difference, but I think the old hag, I could be experienced. Isn't that a demon? Like a ghost is a ghost, right? A ghost is a spirit, but I think the old hag is a demon. Isn't she like a succubus? Isn't that the old hag? So that's a demon. So yeah, demons I do think can hurt you spiritually, physically, mentally. Um, what are your thoughts? Those are my thoughts on that. I'm trying to differentiate imprints, ghost spirits versus demons, right? Um, so let me know if I'm on the wrong track about that here. Okay, so now let's see, since we're on our Americana historical haunting tour here tonight, um, let's see about this location. Well, apparently there were ghosts at the Liberty Bell. I want to talk about the Liberty Bell because in this book I'm reading, Summer of Night, um, he's written so many other famous books that are more like this was actually geared towards young adult, but this is a book for adults and it's kids growing up in the 50s and 60s. And so it's just summer of the 50s and 60s and they're dealing with a haunted town. Anyway, this town is haunted because of this ancient bell that the town bought from Italy. And apparently this bell holds a lot of negative entities and whatnot. So now let's talk about the ghosts at our country's Liberty Bell. So apparently, park rangers and guards and visitors report seeing a spectral guard. They report seeing a man in a Revolutionary War era clothing. He's got a hat and a musket. He's standing near the bell, and he's usually seen at night. And people have said in the 1970s, when the bell was still in Independence Hall, they describe a ranger locking up who spotted this ghost, silently watching the bell until he slowly faded away. Some say it's a soldier from the Continental Army, perhaps linked to the bell's role during the Revolution, though it didn't ring on July 4th, 1776, as the myth suggests. Well, that's interesting. Unlike the Betsy Ross house or Benjamin Franklin haunting the Independence Hall, this ghost lacks any clear identity. Theories range that he could be a patriot guarding the Bell's legacy or just a restless soul from the war torn 1770s. Philadelphia was basically a battleground, so imagine there's probably a lot being seen around there. So before they moved the Liberty Bell to the Liberty Bell Center, it hung in the Independence Hall. And later, its ground floor display, people claim to hear a faint ringing at odd hours during the night. So, despite the bell's famous crack rendering it silent since at least 1846, people could still hear the bell. In fact, a visitor in the 1990s swore they heard a low, mournful chime coming from the bell while they were alone near it after dusk. There's no proof or recordings or anything, unfortunately. But then think about it. The early 1990s, we didn't have the type of cell phones and at the ready to record things. I think it would be a different case now. Um, People have said, though, it's probably someone's imagination that um, the bell's legend of hearing sounds, even though it doesn't work, could have just been wind playing off the inside of the bell itself. I don't know. Tourists also say they'll walk into cold spots, get sudden chills, or have a very heavy feeling when they stand near the bell, which is bizarre because in this book, when they talk about this bell, all that goes on and a lot more. So that's kind of weird. Like, I wonder if this book got this from the Liberty Bell. That's kind of interesting. Hmm. Um, Anyway, a park employee once mentioned feeling that he was being watched while cleaning the pavilion late at night, though they didn't see a ghost or anything. Yeah. So, is the Liberty Bell itself haunted? Is it one of those haunted objects? So, people say there could be spectral energy attached to this bell. So, for one, the residual echoes. Um, so the bell rang famously for key events. For example, it marked the death of George Washington in 1799 and rang to celebrate freedom before the crack occurred. So, a lot of paranormal experts say this bell absorbed the emotions of those moments from all the Revolutionary War fervor, mourning, grief, um, maybe happiness, for winning our country. Um, there's no specific ghost or apparition tied to this bell. It's just the idea that the bell itself could be haunted. So, what's the deal with the crack? Is it a curse? So, there is a theory that says the crack is a curse caused by all the negative energy it could have absorbed or through an unsettled spirit. There is no historical backing to this, it's just a theory. It cracked early and was recast twice by 1753, and then, of course, it cracked again later. Yeah, so a lot of folklore behind that. Again, the last time I'll say it about this book, the bell in this book is cursed. So, interesting. That is just a weird coincidence. Okay. Bells were damaged because they were healing when rung. Ooh, I love that theory. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and you know how bells, can be speaking of that, when you ever have you ever been to one of those weddings and they have a line of people holding bells and ringing bells at different tones? They're vibrating at different frequencies and, different sounds, vibrations, and frequencies can be very healing. Um, yeah, really interesting, right? Oh, Beverly, I have to read what you put there. You heard a bugle play taps in the far off distance in Gettysburg, but the park ranger said There was no reenactment planned. Oh, no! Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Ooh, you guys, Lori put, "We lived in a haunted military quarter house at Fort Riley, Kansas in the '90s. You sense negative energy there, and your 2-year-old daughter saw a mean man on her ceiling one night." That is very scary. Hopefully everyone is okay and positive today, because that's scary. Um, yeah, yeah, thank you for letting me know you agree. It's old hag demons, yes. Right. Yeah, I do believe for sure. We're on the same page with that. Yeah, and you're explaining what's going on with that. Okay. Yeah. Christy, I spoke to a Ben Franklin reenactor. He says he heard the bell ring himself. Also had a run-in with Ben Franklin's ghost. Wow. Right? Okay, let me check something here. Bring up my notes on this part so I'm organized here. Okay. So it's interesting that Benjamin Franklin's ghost has been reported being seen over and over again at Independence Hall because he was quite an interesting character. Um, he came out of that 18th century period where rationalism ruled the day, and he mocked superstitious things. One of his works were a satire called A Witch Trial at Mount Holly. He wrote that in 1730, where he poked fun at witch hunters. It was said ghosts didn't fit his worldview of observable, testable phenomena. And in a letter to his sister Jane, he dismissed a fortune teller's prediction. I guess he went to a fortune teller, or we would call that a psychic these days, right? Or do we still call them fortune tellers? I don't know. But he dismissed it all as nonsense and dismissed it as nothing he would take seriously. Thousands of his letters survive today. He never described actually seeing a ghost himself. His focus was on electricity, inventing bifocals, different types of bifocals, politics, right? Um, so interesting though that his ghost is seen so much, and he wasn't really one to see ghosts himself. Um, he lived most of his life in Philadelphia, and, yeah, his death was in 1790, and that's when the sightings started to ramp up, right? Um, yeah, Benjamin Franklin's home became a site of modern hauntings. He ran an anatomy school. He didn't, but his friend ran an anatomy school. And at his house were bones from over a dozen people that were found in his basement in 1998. Visitors to the Benjamin Franklin house experienced cold spots, footsteps. Um, so yeah, his own house has kind of that lore to it as well. Interesting to note, his own son, Benjamin Franklin's son, died at 4 years old of smallpox in 1736. He was buried nearby in Boston's Granary Burying Ground. Um, and his parents passed in the 1740s, but he never mentions visions of his son or his parents. Um, unlike look at Lincoln's wife, Mary Todd, having seances and saying she's seeing things. So interesting. He did campaign for the smallpox vaccine after Francis's death. I mean, that was really, I think smallpox. Yeah, that was kind of the big bang. I'll call it the big birth of vaccinations. I remember in school how we learned about that. They would use. I know it's really gross, but like the pus from cow udders that were. I guess they would put the smallpox in that, and then they would put it on people. It was really gross how they would do how they would do it, but, um, yeah, and a lot of times the so-called inoculation was deadly, but, um, apparently they kept working on it, and now we have vaccines to this day. Old school vaccines are the good ones. The old ones are the good ones. Not that old though, from the 1700s and the 1800s. I mean, like, uh, yeah, the 20th century ones, the OG ones are a little safer. Yeah, not 100%, but they all have side effects. They do. Ghost stories of the time. Yeah. Um. Oh, this is interesting. In the letter, he jokingly proposed a mathematical way to preserve life. What is that about? That's kind of interesting. Yeah, so his ghost roams around Independence Hall, but he himself did not see ghosts. I just think that's really interesting, kinda getting that. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I think I will. I think that might be the summer trip. Yeah, I think too because, I think my whole family would like to go. I think my, younger son, I think he's the perfect age to go because it would be interesting, and he doesn't find us completely and totally 100% embarrassing yet. It's coming. It's already like, he's like, "Mom, can you be quiet?" Because I know I'm already getting a little bit embarrassing for him. Mhm. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's all the things I have to talk about as far as like the ghostly hauntings around DC. You guys have any other comments or questions about that area? I'll go over it, but otherwise, that's what I wanted to add on to my video from earlier today. Thanks, you guys, for commenting. Yeah, a lot of good comments here. Well, I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. And if I'll look one more time, if there's no other comments, yeah. Um, yeah, thanks all for being here and commenting. I think this was a fascinating subject. There's probably so many more we haven't even touched on or talked about. Um, might have to do one more video because now I might have to do something about that Betsy Ross house. There's way too much going on there. I'm going to have to look more into that. That's super interesting. Okay, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks for being here for the live, and we'll see you soon.